So I thought I should jump on here real quick and give a rundown of what my story is, since I'm now here on YouTube making a channel claiming to be a former cult member. Uh, yeah, so a little bit of this story is in order, and I'll give you a background. And as I go along through here, I do have some photographs of back in that time that I can share with you. So this is a story that starts back when I was very young, about 5 or 6 years old. I barely remember it, actually, in which my parents became believers in a conservative, fundamental evangelical type of church. And this belief system, they weren't particularly zealous, but um, they were the real deal, and believed everything, and were very authentic, and you know tried to be their best. And then as time went on, they continued to join more and more conservative groups until we finally ended up, right around my young teen years, we ended up in a conservative, extremely conservative commune type group. Technically not a commune, but almost. I, I don't really want to put a name on it, just for because. But it's very Amish-like. We did not have any electricity. We did not even have any running water. We did not have vehicles. Um, it was pretty backwards. And so these communities have an entire system in place for when people come in and join these, steps that you have to go through, and indoctrination programs and things like that. And so we were in this group for a while. It was about 5 years, probably, I'm going to say. Um, and then, after time, my parents kind of saw what was going on, and how the whole thing worked, and it wasn't for them, and they got out. I, however, met a girl within this cult-like community and this commune, and yeah, we ended up getting married, starting a family, and I was pretty much in it, hook, line, and sinker. I have to admit, yeah, I pretty much believed all of it. And then the day came where I was chosen through a vote, and became one of the high-ranking members within the leadership. And so, I knew that the group and the situation that we were in wasn't perfect, but I was still giving it my best. And then once I was up into the leadership circles, then I realized that there was an entire layer of the belief system, of the peer pressure, of the manipulation, of you know what were we telling the congregation, what we didn't tell the congregation, how we decided to word things to make the congregation vote on issues the way that we wanted them to vote on issues. And so there was an extreme clickism, and then the amount of manipulation and persuasion, and the pushing of people out, and oh my goodness, it just became way too much even for me. And then over time, so over they claim to be a Christian group, and I happen to have an incredibly high reading comprehension and the ability to write. And if you don't notice, I'm terrible on camera. I hate being on camera. Yeah, even now to this day, we're almost decades later, and I still despise being on camera. And cameras were one thing that were completely forbidden within the circle. Photographs of any kind, and I actually still feel that. So with the combination of the methodologies that the group used and the claim, to try to look on the outside like they were Christian, and I was able to, read the Bible and understand what Christianity was supposed to be and all this good stuff, it didn't match up. And I started asking questions and, basically the whole, we're doing and saying this, but the Bible says that type of thing. And that led over the course of 18 months to probably one of the darkest times of my life and the life of my family. We had, young children at the time. And we got into back and forth, and I had my name smeared and this and that. And of course, then the more they tried to turn the persuasion and manipulation techniques onto me to get me in line, particularly the leader of this group. Looking back on it now, I know he was a narcissist. But the more they tried to turn those back onto me, the more clear how they actually operated worked. And, within the propaganda systems, within what they were trying to do. And eventually it got so bad that we actually feared that some of the leadership were going to come and take away my wife and children and not allow us to have contact with each other anymore. And so this all came to a head. I'll leave the dates out, but it's been almost a decade ago, not quite, as of the time of this recording in 2026. And we ended up packing our house. We put all of our personal belongings. We got packed into boxes, and I called a friend of mine who had a big 15-passenger van, and they came to our house at 2 o'clock in the morning, middle of the night, and we loaded everything that we could into the van and our family, and we left in the middle of the night. And we drove, at this point, like I said, my parents had left already, and so then we drove to my parents' place, which was about 7 hours away from where we lived at the time. And yeah, then we were out. And so that took about, we were several years in recovery from that situation. And we did later find out that the leadership did actually, in fact, show up at our house the very next day after we left with the intention of separating us. So anyway, that is where I'm at. And yeah, I've been layering some of the very few photographs that I actually have from back in that time over. These are those pictures that were all taken without my knowledge to show what it was like back then. And in the meantime, with all of this, then I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always loved business. And as time went on, as I've been out of that situation, I have noticed through the building of my own businesses, I actually have had a successful, you'd call it an e-commerce business within the pet supply industry, actually, for quite a while. And I started integrating some of those techniques into my own marketing. And I'd like to, do something. I'm starting this new venture of teaching these techniques, as I'd like to, start an income stream that, gives me a little bit more location freedom than I have with my current business. So yeah, I'm just going to start putting my knowledge out here on YouTube and the internet, and see if there's anybody interested. I have a complete system I put together that's called the Syncretic Edge, as you can see. And so what this does is this blends the concepts of how religion operates and how cults persuade people and manipulate them into staying and being a member and doing what you want them to do. And then layering in on top of this, that has also been, I've studied it now for, let's see, it's been since about 2015, so I'm on 11 years of some pretty hardcore study into the psychological techniques that has branched out into, hostage negotiations, neuro-linguistic programming, the way that narcissists operate. And this can all be incorporated into business. very, very ethically. And as I look at the internet, I see that there's, very, very few people who are seeming to realize this. And, there's all kinds of great marketing advice out there. And, frankly, a whole bunch of it works. And it works okay. But I'm pretty sure I can supercharge some of this and make it work a hell of a lot better than what's working now. Um, yeah. So I guess that's it. As they say with the old adage, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And I just feel like I've had enough lemons in my life. I've made enough lemonade now that I've got way more than I can drink. So I'm going to sell it. So yeah, I do have a paid program. If anyone is interested, it's definitely still in the beta stages. Like I said, as of the recording of this video, which is early 2026. Yeah, I can help one on one. I'm willing to look at ads, and I'm putting a bunch of the ads, landing pages, any kind of content, copywriting, that type of thing. And I will be putting out a whole bunch of free content. If you're not ready to, you want to spend any money or actually work with me quite a bit closer than what you can get on pre-recorded YouTube videos, that's not an issue. I will definitely be putting out useful and actionable content on all of my platforms on a regular basis. So if nothing else, for the fact that I'm tired of the standard marketing advice that it appears 90% of businesses are using. And I just like to see people really sharpen their game, and even have the quality of the contents that and advertisements that I see on my own social media feeds improve. So yeah, join my community. I have a link down here in the description. That is my riff. And yeah, see you on the inside.